Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
All right, we're back on Wooden Sticks, and as always, recording from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Looking forward to a great conversation later today with Grace Zumwinkle of the Minnesota Frost, formerly the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and a 3-sport athlete at Breck High School for the Mustangs. I've got the chance to get to know Grace on the TV side of things here the last couple of years, covering the Minnesota Frost. She's an energetic, super skilled hockey player, best friends with Taylor Heisey. And oh, by the way, she just won an Olympic gold medal with Team USA after finishing with the silver medal during the pandemic in 2022. The red, white, and blue got it done, taking down their arch rivals from Canada. So we're going to talk a little Frost hockey. We're going to talk about the Olympics. We're going to talk about Taylor Heisey. And we're going to get into her path to greatness in the game of hockey. Really looking forward to that conversation with Grace today. But as always on the show, the opening segment's kind of a broad brush about the game of hockey in general. And as I record here on a Thursday, we are moving ever so close to finalizing the 2 teams that'll compete for the Stanley Cup. We know that the Vegas Golden Knights are back, and we're really happy for them and their fans because they've only known success. In under a decade, this will be their 3rd trip to the finals. They try to win their 2nd Stanley Cup. And I'm sorry, I'm supposed to take the high road here in Minnesota. Growing up a North Star fan, now working with the Minnesota Wild and basically having hockey here for nearly 60 years, that we haven't had a cup run. We've had 2 with the North Stars, but none with the Wild, so I'm a little bitter, but I'm very happy for Vegas. It is a cool story with Tortorella. That part of it I really enjoy. I've had the chance to ask him a couple of questions in press conferences and meet him at various places in my time covering the Wild, and he's been great to listen to and to follow, and he's a spectacular personality in the game of hockey. So from that perspective, it's super fun, but I am really sick and tired of Vegas and how much success they've had. I have nothing against them. I like Jack Eichel. I think their team is terrific top to bottom. And I think they're going to be a real tough team to beat. But it's the same way I feel about Carolina. These are 2 warm weather climates that they have great fan bases. And I think the fan bases follow when you win consistently. And both these teams have done just that. Carolina, of course, has won a Stanley Cup. And so I'll do my best to stay on the high road and think about how much fun they're having. But I'm going to rely on the fact that I feel like our hockey team is getting a little closer, and maybe with some tweaks this offseason by Billy Guerin, next year we're back in the mix and maybe a chance to make a run at a cup with the crew that the Minnesota Wild have right now. But the hockey's been great to watch. Colorado suffered some of the same issues that Minnesota went through when the Wild were beaten by the Avalanche. They were missing 2 really important players in Ek and Brodin. And when Makar got hurt within that Wild series, you look at it 2 different ways. From a Wild perspective, if Minnesota can hang on to that it was a 3-0 lead, 3-1 going to the 3rd, and then the Avalanche get the goalie pulled and score a couple late. Minnesota can hang on to the win there, and now we know Makar likely would not have played in Game 6 and 7. There was absolutely a path to victory, even without 14 and 25 available for John Hines and his team. That's something that the Wild players are going to have to live with, hopefully use that as motivation, because they have to realize how close they truly are to being a team that can make it all the way to the Stanley Cup and maybe beyond and win it. So there's good and bad with that. But then also for the Avalanche, they got a taste of what we were dealing with because they didn't have Makar healthy throughout that series. He missed multiple games, and then McKinnon wasn't fully healthy at all either, amongst other players on that roster. So they had to deal with it, and let's give Vegas credit. they swept them. They left no doubt. They were the better team. When Vegas is playing at the top of their game, they are so hard to play against. They take away the middle of the rink. They're physical. They block a ton of shots. They play a very, very smart brand of hockey. And when Tortorella arrived, they seemed to upgrade the way they found their identity, and they had kind of lost their way during the regular season. And Wild fans know this. If you watch the Wild play the Golden Knights throughout the regular season, not only did the Wild sweep Vegas, but in 2 of the 3 games, they blew them off the ice. The games weren't close. Now, Vegas is a different team now. I mean, you can't really compare the team that the Wild beat in the regular season to the team they are now. I mean, Vegas is playing like a completely different team. And I know it stings for Minnesota to not be there a little bit because they were banged up against Colorado and because they swept Vegas. But how about the fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Mitch Marner. Oh, my goodness. He is having a Conn Smythe type of playoff run. And so for Toronto fans, he was a target of their angst, to say the least, when they were underachieving these last few years in the postseason. But he's clearly proving that he might not have been the issue, because he is just doing a spectacular job with the Golden Knights. So it looks like Vegas and Carolina. I looked online this morning. Carolina in the betting market's going to be a small favorite. I actually leaned Vegas. I think they've got the most complete team right now, the way they're defending, and the physical play they're going to bring to the table is unlike anything I think Carolina will have seen so far in their run to the final. Although Carolina is fast and they also play great defense, I think it's going to be a low scoring. They're going to be tight games. It's going to be a fun Stanley Cup to watch, although the ratings are not going to be good. As people that are deep into the game of hockey, we're going to love watching 2 great teams with 2 interesting coaches go toe-to-toe. It's going to be great. But for the average sports fan, they're going to go watch the NBA. They're going to watch the New York Knickerbockers against either OKC or San Antonio. They're going to have the bigger splash in terms of TV ratings. It's something we're going to have to live with because Carolina and Vegas just aren't going to move the national needle in those 2 markets with the teams that they bring to the table. There are some star names like Jack Eichel, and you have Sebastian Aho, and you have some good players, but it's not nearly going to do the damage the NBA will do. So I'll keep an eye on all that. Of course, we'll have guests here throughout the summer that will tackle NHL, PWHL, high school, college, you name it. We're going to have it covered here. And again, ping me on X or Twitter at Gorgomatic21. For today, though, it's time to thank the people that make this podcast happen. And I'm going to start at the top of that list. My dear friend, John Schweitz, and the good people of Minnesota Masonic Charities. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz. I also want to thank our newest member in terms of sponsors here on the show. It's Lucy Nicotine Pouches. Hi, this is Kevin Gorg, and I wanted to introduce you to a product a lot of my friends have been using lately called Lucy. Lucy is a premium tobacco-free nicotine pouch that comes in a variety of strengths and flavors, so there's an option for just about everyone. What makes it stand out is the flavor experience, especially with Lucy Breakers, which have a built-in flavor capsule you crack for an instant extra burst. That's what makes Lucy different. It's the only pouch delivering long-lasting, on-demand flavor, giving you a unique experience every single time. And now you can get 20% off your first order at lucy.co/woodensticks. Use the promo code WoodenSticks. And if you don't want to wait, check out their store locator so you can find Lucy near you and grab it today. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of a legal age, and every customer is age verified. Warning, this product does contain nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. And the good people of Onyx Fish and Onyx Maps.
If you like to hunt or fish, I highly recommend checking out onyxmaps.com. Check it out for onxmaps.com/hunt or onxmaps.com/fish. Stop fishing the same lake because it's the only one you know. Onyx Fish lets you filter lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential so you can make a smarter call on where to spend your Saturday before you ever hitch up the trailer. It's only $34.99 for the year, less than a spool of good braid. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store or go to onxmaps.com/fish and fish smarter this season.
And, of course, our friends at Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. When we return, two-time Walter Cup champion and Olympic gold medalist, Grace Zumwinkle. All right, we are back here on your favorite hockey podcast. This is Wooden Sticks. I am Kevin Gorg, recording on the Talk North Podcast Network, as always, here at the Aquarius Home Services studio. Happy to be joined by a very familiar face to hockey fans here in Minnesota from the Minnesota Frost. She is Grace Zumwinkle. Grace, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How's the offseason treating you? I know you're not used to this, right? You guys normally are playing to the bitter end, and for once now in the first 3 years of Frost hockey, you guys didn't get to the Walter Cup final. But how have the early weeks of the offseason treated you?
Yeah, it's definitely a different feeling for a lot of us, but I do think for a lot of us, we've played a lot of hockey this past year with the Olympics, and starting all the way back, the U.S. national team was actually starting training camps in August. So for a lot of us, it's been a lot of hockey. So it takes some time away from the rink and do some things that we all love and enjoy away from hockey.
I got the chance and the opportunity, which I'm very blessed because of it, to broadcast probably 12 or 13 of your games during the regular season. And I did a couple of games when you played Montreal. And I think watching those games and how, physical and fast-paced they were, I'm not completely surprised that Montreal, after beating you, was able to go on and win the Walter Cup. When you get, and again, this is the first time you've done this, when you get beat in an emotional Game 5 type of setting like you did, a very competitive series, do you still watch the championship series, or are you too, disappointed and bitter where you just want to kind of get away from the game?
There's a little bit of both. I mean, I think I tuned in to one of the games. But I mean, you're still invested in it and want to see how it's going to all play out and finish. But I think Montreal, they're such a good team structurally. And I mean, from their goaltending all the way up, it's a pretty strong team. So I think we gave them a good run in the 5-game series that we did. But yeah, it was cool to see that the run that they had. But obviously stinks losing to the champs as well.
Well, there's so much hockey you played this year, as you mentioned, and so much of the big games that you played, whether it was as a member of the Frost or playing for Team USA, you're squaring off against those two big names on Team Canada, those two big names for the Victoire, and of course, Desbiens in goal and Marie-Philippe Poulin up front. So how sick and tired are you of competing against those guys, even though they're two of the best in the world? I mean, it felt like every time you had a big game, there they were.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got quite familiar with them. I mean, they're all amazing players, and so it's this league and with the national team as well, like you're competing with and against the best every single night, and I think that's a great thing, and you never really get sick of competing. So
this is a really fun question to ask because I'm certain it's going to be even more fun for you to answer. Walter Cup championships with an S and that feeling, or playing on that gigantic stage and winning a gold medal for the red, white, and blue against your arch rivals from Canada. How do those two victory celebrations compare?
I mean, everyone loves winning, and I'll first off and start with that. You never get sick of it. I just think they're so different. Obviously, like with the Walter Cup, it's kind of a year-by-year experience, and I think for the Olympics, it's something that a lot of us have been building up since 2022. And so I know within USA Hockey, we kind of look at it as like 4-year increments, and so I think that's something that our group has been building for a while. But I mean, I wouldn't say one's better than the other. I think they're both special in very different ways, but different experiences for sure.
So I got to ask you, long-term, what do you do with a gold medal? Because I had a chance to hold Taylor Heisey's, and it's really heavy. Is it something you put in a display? Is it something you tuck under your pillow? I think a lot of us, and I'm speaking for almost everybody listening, they never have the opportunity to have a gold medal, and it's such a special item. What do you do with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix of like people want to see it, and it's like it's not something that you just hide in the basement. It's not something I'm flaunting around, carrying around with me every single day. But I think like especially young girls, they want to see it and have something to dream of obtaining. So it's definitely a balance of showcasing it, but kind of once the summer passes, I'll probably just keep it at my parents' house.
So I got to ask you about the PWHL because I'm fascinated by this next phase, but I'll start by footnoting that these takeover games have been unbelievable. And so I watch a lot of the hockey. I listen to the Jocks and Jills podcast, and I try to keep up, even though I'm on the NHL beat with the Wild. It feels like every place that you guys go as a league, the buildings are full. And I know you guys played some games in Denver. You played in all kinds of cool areas. I think Detroit was one of your locations. Why do you think the league has as much success as it does, sometimes playing in markets where there isn't technically a home team?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the traction that the league has gained in 3 years, and you from the inaugural 6 teams to now they're adding 4 new teams. There'll be 12 teams now, and I think just the growth that it's had, and it's a product that's super obtainable. Like from in the States, you can get it for free on YouTube, and so I think a lot of people are like, turn it on if it's here or there, and they can see how accessible it is for everyone. And I think that's something that a lot of people appreciate, and not many people are used to seeing women's hockey on the professional landscape. So it's kind of the first time for it, and I think it's gaining a lot of traction. So has helped us grow with it.
And I just look at what you guys do on a nightly basis in St. Paul, and it's to me, it's really cool to see how many young people are in the stands. Like when I come to a game, whether I'm working or as a fan, like I did in the playoffs. There are families everywhere, and it isn't just little girls, Grace. It's little boys. You guys are pro athletes, and I think the league has gotten to a place now where that credibility is there. A lot like the WNBA has established, and I look at what Caitlin Clark has done. You guys are a league now that can stand on your own, and people just want to come watch the best players in the world at their craft. For you as players, when you're at a home game, when you're skating around and you hear the chanting and you look around, you see the little kids during warm-ups, how does that hit you?
Yeah, I think I was just telling someone about this the other day, but it's like one of those things growing up, being from Minnesota, the biggest like pinnacle of women's hockey here in Minnesota was the Golden Gophers. And like that was something every little girl dreamed of. And it was never like you could go to a Wild game, but you're like, that will never be me one day. And I think that's something that's so awesome about our league and our team here in Minnesota is you can have those young girls come and they're like, oh, I can actually be a professional hockey player when I grow up. And it's not just the guys. And I think kind of what you said with the WNBA, we attract a different clientele than the Minnesota Wild does. And I think that's something that we take pride of is like when you're skating around in warm-ups or whatever, you're like, that was me at one point in time. And it's like, how can we be good role models and inspiration for the people that are coming in the next few years?
If you had to compare yourself to a member of the Minnesota Wild, like a player that we watch on a nightly basis, I know you guys attend some games, watch some games. I know Marcus Foligno and his daughters have been in your locker room to read the lineup card, and I know there's a great relationship there as you guys kind of pull for each other, sharing the same practice facilities. But if you had to pick a player on the roster right now that, when Wild fans are watching the Wild play and you watch and say, well, that's kind of how I play the game. That's a player that plays the game with the mentality that I play with. And I don't even look at the stats, Grace, just the style of play. Is there a player or players that catch your eye?
That's a good question. I have never really thought about that before. I think you watch and you're like, how are there things that they do so well? Like you look at how dynamic their power play is or just like plays that they make. And I think Taylor Heisey and I skate with a bunch of them in the summer. And I'm like, how do you make that play? But I think like seeing Boldy's skill or like Eriksson's like grit and resilience or like Johansson's feet. I mean, like there's things like that it's like, it's very noticeable when you watch and it's like, okay, if they're being successful at this on their playing field, like how is that something that we could add more to ours? And I think just watching them night after night, I mean, how can I forget Kaprizov? I mean, with his dynamic scoring ability. But it's like, they're just so impressive to watch. And I think having their support means a lot to us.
I thought of Marcus Johansson. I'm really glad you brought his name up because I look at the way he plays a two-way game, and their coach, John Hines, always talks about how responsible the Eck, Boldy, and Johansson line is and how people always look at the stats and look at the offensive side of the puck, but what they do defensively really sets them up for success. He's a great two-way forward that uses his speed to gain open ice. And I look at the way you play your game. You're a responsible player. You use your speed. You can close space defensively, but you can open up space when your team's on the attack. So anyway, I thought of Johansson. I wasn't sure if you were going to get there, but I'm glad you mentioned his name. As your league continues to get better, how much pressure is there on a nightly basis for players like you that, again, you were drafted and you were rostered to be an offensive threat, and you are, Grace, every night, every shift, an offensive weapon for this team. But now, as the league gets deeper and better, how much pressure does that put on players like you to be good two-way players as well?
Yeah, I think especially like with the national team, that's something that I've really had to prioritize is like being that responsible two-way forward and being relied on in situations if it's you're up a goal, down a goal, or whatever that is. But I think a lot of us take pride at the Frost and like if you're an offensive producer, like you want to produce, you want to contribute, whatever. And I think so many people just look at the box score like, oh, so-and-so had a goal and an assist, and like that's great, but it's not always the true metric of performance. And so I think that's something that us as females are getting used to is like, how are there other areas that we can continue to focus and continue to get better outside of what you see on the stats?
So a lot of times here at Wooden Sticks, because of the name of the show, we're taking it back to when wooden sticks were used, which is way before your time. But I was happy to see, as I kind of looked at your bio and got to know your parents a little bit, they were both athletes. I know you were a three-sport athlete in high school, playing golf and tennis, along with this hockey stardom we've seen from a long ways away when you were back at Breck. But I looked at your dad, and he played at St. John's, I think from 82 to 86 on the football field, and I played at St. Thomas on the hockey side from 86 to 90. So our paths maybe crossed for 1 year with our circle of friends and that great rivalry with St. Thomas and St. John's. And I saw that your mom was an athlete on the tennis side at St. Ben's. So how young were you when you knew that your parents were great athletes and you knew maybe as a little youngster that you wanted to be at least involved in sports?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. So, I mean, like you said, my parents never really were into hockey, with my dad with football, my mom with tennis. But I went to kindergarten at St. Hubert's, a smaller Catholic school here in Minnesota. And my kindergarten class crush actually had a flyer that he was going to start playing hockey. And so I wanted to do everything that he did. So I brought the flyer home to my parents and I was like, oh, I want to play hockey. And my parents were very confused where this came from. But my parents, like at that young age, like we just want to find something that they're passionate about and sign them up. So we were doing all sports, and my dad signed me up for hockey with the local youth association. And the night before the first practice, I sat crying in my bed telling my dad I didn't want to go anymore. And he had bought the whole starter kit. He had signed up for the whole registration. He goes, no, we're going. Like, I spent all this money, whatever. So he's like, give it a try. Like, my thing in my family is like, once you make a commitment, you follow through on it. And so we went the first day. I had never skated before. And in Minnesota, there's a lot of people with NHL ties whose dads had played. And I got on the ice and I literally hung onto the boards, did not skate, did not move the whole time. And after the practice had ended, I looked at my parents and I was like, I was the best one out there. And my parents, not wanting to shatter confidence at that young age, were like, yeah, they just went with it. And I mean, it's something I've loved ever since. And my two sisters have also gotten into it after that.
It's funny how fate takes over, right? You know, you end up being an Olympic gold medalist, a two-time Walter Cup champion. You do all these great things locally here in Minnesota at the high school and college level. And had your dad not been firm, honestly, had your dad not stood his ground after making that commitment, you just don't know, right? Maybe you would have found your way back to the rink at an older age, but maybe not. And I think the one thing we've learned talking to high-end talent on both the men's and women's side, the earlier you start the game and kind of go through that process, because it's hard, right? It's really hard to learn how to skate, not fall down and get frustrated when you're little like that. But the earlier you start, the bigger that curve can be to get where you want to be. So I think it absolutely mattered, and I'm sure your dad has to take some of the credit here.
Yes, for sure. I mean, he's a humble guy, so he wouldn't say that, but I do have to give him some credit.
How much during the year whether it's with the frost or when you're traveling overseas, how much do your parents get to watch? Because, you are playing professionally here locally. How often are they watching you? Did they join you at the Olympics? And are there phone conversations or texts throughout the year of encouragement? Here's where I am. I'm in New York or I'm in Canada. I'm just fascinated by that relationship with your mom and dad.
Yeah, no, I mean, they try to come to as many games as they can. Obviously, being here locally makes the home games that much easier, but they do travel a decent amount. They were over in Milan for the whole time, and I think just being able to share that experience with them was super special because in 2022 with the pandemic, it was so different. And I would say, like, my whole career, I have to attribute to them with the sacrifices and resources that they've made to get me to where I am. So, yeah, they try to come as much as they can, and I obviously love having them in the stands at the games.
How did the gold medal hit mom and dad? Because I just think of the emotion involved for all of us as, hockey fans, right? We're here watching both you guys and the men do these incredible things. Both games were just spectacular drama. And it's hard for us as just fans not to get a little emotional about these incredible games. So how did it hit mom and dad?
Yeah, there was definitely some tears, some lots of emotions, but I think it's like one of those things where you're like, you get so consumed in the moment and you're like, this has been in the works for 20 some years. And you kind of like remind yourself like where you started and how you got to there and like all the people that have like helped along the way. And I think my family coming out of the experience was like just super grateful for the experience and the people that have helped because there's obviously been a ton of coaches and people that have supported me along the way to get to where I'm at.
And I'm so happy that you were a three-sport athlete because I grew up in an era long before you. And when I played high school sports back in the early to mid 80s, everybody played at least, 2 or 3 sports. Now it's very rare actually when you see athletes here in the modern era that don't just specialize, especially on the hockey side. How much did being a tennis player and a golfer growing up, especially when you were a younger high school hockey player, how much did it help you in becoming not just a great hockey player, Grace, but somebody that would eventually be a captain at both the high school and college level?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, like, seeing all these people specialize nowadays, and I always ask kids when I see them, like, "Oh, you don't play any other sports?" And they're like, "No," and I'm like, "That's foreign to me," because I'm like, I don't think I just played hockey until my freshman year of college, like, I played 3 sports all the way up until my senior year, and I think, those other sports experiences, like, taught me so much about myself just as a competitor and, helped me be a more well-rounded athlete, and I think, it has translated into the career I've had today.
How much do you still play golf or tennis now that you're a pro hockey player?
In the summer, I still play a decent amount. I think I try to play as much as I can when I'm not skating right now, but I play a lot with my family and friends, and I know pickleball's kind of taken off nowadays. So I dabble with that as well.
Well, I can imagine you're probably a pretty good pickleball player because you've got great feet and obviously the tennis background, the hand-eye. I'm certain that you'd be a good partner to have in doubles.
I would like to think I'm a decent partner.
I came to pickleball during the pandemic and played with some family members and fell in love with the game. I'm an old goalie, and tennis, I just got to be too old and slow to run around that court. But pickleball, I could play the net, and I still go back to those goaltending, that hand-eye that I never really lost, even though I'm a lot older and slower now. And I loved it. Like pickleball for me really helped get me through the pandemic. And I think it's amazing now when you're clicking around like last night, for instance, I watched the Carolina-Montreal game and I was clicking around on my TV late night trying to, figure out how I'm going to fall asleep. And I found a pickleball tournament on TV. That was unheard of 5 or 6 years ago, but now it's so common. It's crazy how popular it's got. You can't drive around the Twin Cities and not see games going on as we speak right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy. I think one of the things people appreciate about it is it's easier to pick up. For most people who are like tennis, it's like you kind of have to learn the fundamentals and it can take a while to get a rally going. And I think pickleball is like you can have 2, 3, 4 friends and easily get a game that's competitive. And I think it's been something that's really blown up here all over the US. And so I think it's just awesome to see.
So real quick, back to the PWHL, because we saw the expansion this last go around with Seattle and Vancouver. It was a giant success. They had great crowds. The teams look like they're coming together. They're competitive. They're going to get there for sure. But now we have Detroit, Hamilton, Las Vegas, and San Jose joining the mix. It's going to be a 12-team league. For you guys as players, and I think of you, Grace, specifically, who are, you're from Minnesota. You've had this amazing career, both in college locally, here in pro locally, so you know how to navigate playing in your hometown. It's not easy, but you figured it out, right? And you've had all this success. You've won these championships, and you've got these great friends on the team. Not everybody gets to stay. I don't know how this is going to play out. I know it happens here next week when they start to figure out the expansion draft. For you as a player, how do you look at this? It's great for the league, but personally, how do you handle it?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because it's like you look across the league and from a broader landscape, you're like, it's growing and succeeding. And I think for us as females, we're now trying to see the landscape from like what the guys have only known is it's a business at the end of the day. And I think it's sometimes you get into the emotional and being like, oh, like I'm here, I have all these friends here and whatever. And I think everyone's starting to see that. I mean, that as much as I love Minnesota here, they have decisions that they need to make. I have decisions that I need to make. And obviously Minnesota is a special place for me, but everyone's in a very different situation. And I think it'll just be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Are you in on the process? Do you as players get to find out before the expansion draft which players on the roster for each team are protected and which are going to be exposed? How does that? I don't know how it works.
Yeah. Well, last year on they had like a true expansion draft of like each team got to sign 5 players ahead of time, and then there wasn't a draft with everyone else that was not protected. This year they're doing it a little bit different. It's like a series of signing windows. So there's maybe 5-6 phases, and there's different rules as you go along to the different phases, and there's different deadlines. So it's pretty in depth, and luckily these days we have agents that kind of help and guide us along the journey. But as it comes down to fit and trying to find the best situation for you personally.
But bottom line is, you mentioned it is a business, and I think you guys are starting to realize that business is blooming. Rinks are full, and now we're going to have 12 teams, and you're going to have 4 new markets where you can sell the game and continue to grow the game of women's hockey. For you as a player that's still, I think, either ahead of your prime or getting to your prime, still a young player, right? Like you've got some runway in front of you here. How exciting is it for you to see this league getting bigger and better?
Yeah, I think you look at it and it was like, for Taylor Heisey and I just can speak on the two of us as we graduated college at the same time, is like we graduated and went right into a professional league. And there's a lot of people that came before us that were hopping around doing different side hustles to make ends meet. And so, I mean, we are super fortunate, and the league wouldn't be where it is today without like Kendall Coynes of the world and Hillary Knights and people like that have really kind of established this league. But you look forward and you're like, it's a good time to be this young and in sports and have such a bright future to look forward to, and see the people that are coming out of college and what they get to look forward to. It's such a great time for women's sports. And I don't just say that from the hockey side, but across other sports as well.
Well, I have to, and I knew I was going to get to this point at some spot here on the podcast, but your friendship with Taylor Heisey is what I love most about the game of hockey, because I'm going to be 60 this coming winter. And so I still have friends, Grace, that I played with when I was in youth hockey, and we're still really close. And I think it's one of the most special parts of the game of hockey is how you stay connected with these people the rest of your life. So take us back to when you first met Taylor Heisey for the first time, and why are you guys so... I look at Kaprizov and Zuccarello and the whole peanut butter and jelly thing. I see it with you guys. Like, you guys have your own T-shirts. You guys have your own vibe. You're always so much fun when I see you guys together. What was when you met, what was the point and the stepping off point that allowed you guys to have such great chemistry and be such good friends?
Yeah, I think we first met at like a U18 USA national team camp. Obviously, like both growing up in Minnesota, we kind of knew of each other, but we didn't really know each other. And then as we went through college together and just had a ton of shared experiences with USA hockey camps and throughout college, and now professionally, it's something that I'm like, I can't imagine not being on a team with her. And I think it's something like when we go on the road, we're road roommates all the time. And so it's like I view her as another sister to me, and I mean the relationship is super special, and I think just being able to go through the highs and lows that the sport and life sometimes gives us, it's nice to share that experience with someone else.
Well, she's got a big date coming up here with Parker Fox, and it's because Parker's on the radio on a regular basis, and Taylor now has joined him over at KFan. You get to hear some of the planning coming together, and I chuckle every time Parker tries to talk about the wedding planning, because you and I both know that he has no say in anything, and she's running this show.
She is, yes.
So, what kind of bride is she going to be? Because she's so cool under pressure. Like when I interview her or I see her in a big game, in a big moment, like she's Captain Cool out there. You guys all seem to have that aura about you. That's why you've had all these great successes on the ice. What kind of bride is she going to be? Like that day, the wedding day, is she going to be freaking out? Is she going to be like she is on the ice, Captain Cool? How do you see this playing out if you had to predict right now?
Well, I'm her maid of honor, so
oh boy.
I will say, yes, she's very calm and cool, but I also know that like she's done all the work. So it's like the same thing with hockey, is like she's done all the preparation. So it's like when it shows up to like for the game or hopefully for her on her wedding, I think she'll be pretty calm. And I mean, I don't really classify her as a bridezilla in any way, but I know she wants it done a certain way and wants it done well.
I have to imagine, and I'm just guessing, and if I'm wrong, fine, I'm wrong. Bridesmaids' dresses have to be either lavender or purple, don't they, if you're a member of the Minnesota Frost?
I would like to think that, but they are not. But I will tell her you said that.
I might have to text her myself. That is very disappointing. And I'm just kidding around. They're going to have a great wedding. We're all very happy. And I'm thrilled that you're going to be the maid of honor. That's really a cool connection. And again, like I mentioned, these are relationships you build for a lifetime. And you guys seem to be just you look like you're having so much fun together on the ice, at practice, wherever it is. And you mentioned your roommates on the road. So let me just ask you briefly about the road in the PWHL, because we had that weird circumstance this year during the that series against Montreal where a game was postponed due to illness. And I understand that you got to kind of walk the company line a little bit here, but I'm going to tell you, I was shocked. Like literally when I saw that note on Twitter, I almost fell over. I'm like, wait a minute here. How are they postponing a game because of illness? And again, we're not making excuses. Montreal won the championship and we're going to tip our hats to them. That's not what this question is about. How did it hit you though when you got that news? Like, oh my gosh, we're actually not playing here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. We were at pregame meal when they told us. And so for people that maybe it's like 4 hours before. And I think a lot of us were like, this is the first time I've heard this happen in professional sports. Like, I've never seen this before. And obviously, as a competitor, you're all getting excited for the game and everything. And that's the decision that they made. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Right.
But you kind of have to adapt and adjust, and you're like, there's nothing we can do about it. And I'm not saying if we would have played that game on Monday or whatever it was, the outcome would have changed. But it's just something that we have to live with and know that that was kind of the reality of the situation.
And I just think logistically, the fact that you played within 24 hours later, and, hockey is a close contact sport. We learned all about that during the pandemic. Do you go onto the ice that next night as a competitor, as a player trying to advance to a championship, at all in the back of your mind thinking that, my goodness, half these players I'm in the corner with here have something, right? Like, I mean, it's not that much better 18 to 24 hours later. How psychologically, how did that game play out, when you look back at it now?
Yeah, I think some people were definitely thinking about it like, I think we just didn't really know the scope of the situation. Like, how many are sick? Like, what are your symptoms? What is that? Like, I think people were kind of in the dark on that. And so I think it's something that when you're actually out there playing the game, you're not thinking like, who in the corner, just what symptoms did they have last night? And so definitely different. But I think there was probably a psychological component to it for our team that we had to get through.
And how much skating now that we've made to the off season? I'll kind of move forward from that playoff situation, but I have my own opinions. I'll get to that later in the show when you're not around. I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but I know you have to have an off season, right? You mentioned all the hockey you guys played and, training to get ready to play in the Olympics and traveling to do so and winning gold and the emotion involved and getting back into your season and making a run through the playoffs. Like, these are busy month after months of hockey. How much time do you give yourself to just be off the ice and maybe, I don't want to say not training, but not like grinding here, because without an off season, I don't think the season would be nearly as much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, or myself and Taylor Heisey and I, we do everything together in the summer, skating, working out together. So we each give ourselves a few weeks off. We're going to start getting back into the gym here in a week or two. But I think a lot of people forget that we are very normal people outside of the rink. You see the spotlight in the games, but there's other things that bring us joy. Like for me, it's going on the lake with my family or golf and tennis. And so I think everyone kind of has their own things. And there's weddings, trips, stuff in the summers that very normal people do. And I think that's something is like we have the time to do it now. And so try to just make the most of the opportunities.
And I think if you live in Minnesota and you have access to anything on a lake, knowing how long our winters are, I mean, and you live this, you have to do it, right? Like you mentioned lake life. That's, for me, living in Minnesota, you have to make the most of June through the end of September. That's when our weather's at its very best. What do you like to do on the lake? Is it just chill on the boat? Is it water ski? Is it actually swimming? What do you love to do in terms of lake life?
Yeah, we have a family pontoon, so we'll usually take that out and just kind of putz around. But I do enjoy getting into the water and swimming. Surfing and skiing are also things I enjoy as well.
That's so much fun. I just love it. And you mentioned golf and tennis. Is there a golf course that you love to play at, or do you, like a lot of my buddies, they'll move all the way around the Twin Cities and play, 7-8 different courses in the summer, or do you isolate on one course?
I grew up playing at Windsong with my family, and so that's
nice.
A course that I usually just spend the most amount of time at. And I mean, it's something that all I've known, but I'm also open to going around to other courses. And I think as more, like a lot of guys enjoy it, but I have a lot of good friends that enjoy golfing, so we try to go around as well to different courses.
I have a dear friend named Jim Sand that's a member out at Windsong, and he is nice enough to have me out there every year. We play kind of in the fall, right before the wild season starts. I have not seen the new 18 at Windsong Farm. How is it?
It's spectacular. It's definitely a different experience than the normal course. There's a lot more blind shots and things that you have to cross over, but it's a different challenge. And I think that's what makes it special about having two different courses with completely different vibes.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. We're going to kind of segue here to the final few questions, and I got a couple of quick ones. I'm going to segue back to the wedding here real quick. Are you in charge of the bachelorette party?
Yes, I am. It's coming up here in a few weeks.
In town, out of town, how you doing that?
It's in Park City.
Yes.
Yes. So we have a few things planned, and it should be a good weekend celebrating our bride-to-be.
That's really fun. And what is the date of the wedding? One more time. I know I've heard it on the radio 15 different times.
It's August 22nd.
Very cool. Well, really excited for Taylor and for P. Fox. Parker's such a great kid. I'm glad he's getting into broadcasting. And like Taylor, who comes from a basketball family, now here's Parker Fox, this Gopher basketball legend. He worked on Hockey Day Minnesota. He's starting to broadcast hockey. He's tweeting about Minnesota Wild games, Minnesota Frost games. We are cultivating another basketball guy and turning him into a hockey guy, and I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, Parker, he's quite the guy. And I think he'll do awesome at the broadcasting, getting into hockey or whatever he's passionate about. But I think everyone loves listening to his voice on the radio or other broadcasting things. So I think he's going to do quite well in it.
All right, so we've come to the final segment. This is called the Hat Trick Hot Seat, and I love throwing 3 questions at you that are going to allow our listeners to kind of get to know you a little bit, maybe away from the game of hockey. And this was always my starting point question, and you're so much younger than I am, so I have no idea where you're going to go with this, but I want to know the first concert, Grace, that you attended. And I want to know who the artist or band was, and then what was the venue when you went to that first concert.
Okay, so this might date me, but it was Hannah Montana and the Jonas Brothers, and it was at the Xcel Energy Center at the time.
So I imagine a Hannah Montana concert back then is probably a whole heck of a lot different than a Miley Cyrus concert might be now. I've seen
I think that
wrecking
was a little bit
balls.
more. Hannah Montana's probably a little bit more PG than
And that had to be
Miley is
fun.
these days. Yes.
How old were you?
I don't know. I think I had to have been in elementary school.
Yeah, I was thinking you were young, and that first concert experience is always a little overwhelming, and you saw two different acts, so that's exciting, right? Like you get there, and it's a brand new experience, and if you love music, which I'm assuming you do, I do, it's just so different when you see it live, and so that makes me happy. I have 3 daughters, Grace, ages 22 through 30, so trust me, Hannah Montana, Jonas Brothers, the one thing I'll say, and this is funny because I get made fun of by my buddies now because I'm a Swiftie, and I don't run from the fact that I love Taylor Swift, and I never would have even been exposed to Taylor Swift if my daughters hadn't really forced me to go to a concert. This is probably 12 years ago. She was playing in St. Paul. At the time, it was the XL Energy Center, and I was blown away. Like, I love music. Taylor Swift was not on my radar at that time as a grown man. And all of a sudden I go to this concert with my daughters and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, she is so good, so talented, and so much fun in concert. Then I knew all the songs because, they're on the radio all the time or whatever. And so that turned me at that exact moment 12 years ago into a Swiftie. And I'll tell you a real quick story since I know you've traveled to Toronto. A couple years ago, the Wild are flying to Toronto. My thing on the road is I like to go to the movies. That's how I kind of run my time, my free time when I travel. And so we're flying in on a Friday night, and I'm on the computer on the charter plane that's getting ready to land, and I go on and see that the Taylor Swift concert movie is showing at a theater right by our hotel. And I get the last seat available for this movie. And I think I'm just going to the movies, right? I walk into this theater, and I'm in my late 50s, and I look around, and there are a couple other dudes in there, but it's a lot of moms and kids. And there's an open bar, or not open, but you have to pay for your drinks, but there's like a bar at the front of the theater, kind of by the left of the screen. And then these people, and I mean everybody except for me, are like jumping around and screaming and dancing. And then she gets done playing the music. This is a 3-hour movie, by the way. And they're clapping. And I'm looking around saying, she can't hear you. Like that's a movie theater screen. She can't hear you. Now, I loved it. Like, I was blown away by how interactive that concert movie was. But I think as I sat on that computer and logged on to get that seat, I don't think I knew exactly what I was getting into. And it maybe reminds me of what you got to see at that Hannah Montana concert.
That is so funny. I was just waiting I was like, oh, I mean, good for you. I mean, having a girl dad, I think he can relate to that. But that's funny.
Yeah, I'm a Swiftie, and I'm never going to run from it. I think she's spectacular. All right, next question revolves around travel. You clearly get to do that as a part of your profession. What is your favorite city to visit? Now, this can be a city that you visited playing hockey, or it could just be a place that maybe you visited on your own time. But do you have a city that stands out?
Outside of vacation, my family takes a lot of trips to Naples. So like for the last 10, 12 years, we've gone there every year. And it's just super low key. But I would say that's probably one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, I've been to Naples. And again, when you live in a colder climate like we do, I have to ask you, because New York is at the top of my list. People either love or really don't enjoy their time in New York City. How do you handle New York City?
I've gone to New York City a few times for the U.S. Open, the tennis U.S. Open. And it's one of those cities where I love, but like after a full weekend of walking around everything, I'm also like, I'm ready to go home. So they call it the concrete jungle for a reason, but I mean, you can't miss anything there.
I love visiting there. I will tell you, I could never live there. It would be exhausting, both walking everywhere and then the money, because everything's just expensive in New York. It's awesome. But it's exhausting. I love to visit. I could not live there. Final question is going to be this, and I'll get into a restaurant, but as a meal, if it's your birthday or if you're celebrating one of your many championships, and the people that are hosting are saying, we are going to craft a meal that includes everything that Grace Zumwinkle adores, from the salad to the main course to the dessert, and to all the things that go along with it. What would be the meal you'd tell them if they're planning like a special birthday party for you, that this meal has it all?
So I would say I would either do a steak or some steak kebabs with this fruit salad. It's basically strawberries, mandarin oranges, and salad on like a fruit salad kind of thing. And then for a dessert, have you ever been to Yum?
Yes, I have.
The patty cake is phenomenal. So that would probably have to be my dessert of choice.
Yum has really good breakfast items. I didn't even know this because, you think about the bakery side and it's terrific. I think there's a handful of Yums here in the Metro, but their breakfast, like the scrambled eggs and bacon, the steak and eggs, like they've got a legitimate breakfast menu. So I'm glad you brought that up. And now that'll segue. You're so good at this. This will segue into let's pretend you and Taylor Heisey, being the best of buddies, had some mythical bet where the person that loses the bet has to take the winner out to dinner, all expenses paid, whatever it costs, favorite restaurant in town or one of their favorite restaurants in town, because I'm sure there's many. And so let's just say you win the bet, and this weekend Heisey's taking you out for whatever meal you want at whatever restaurant you choose here in the Twin Cities. Where are you making her take you to dinner?
I mean, maybe I should tell her that you told her. I will tell her that you told me to tell her that she has to take me out this weekend. But I would say Porzana or Billy's Sushi.
Now, Billy's Sushi, you'll have a hard time not seeing Kirill Kaprizov because I think he's there 5 nights a week. Porzana is a great spot. I've been there once. Great spot. I think we're very blessed here, Grace, in the Twin Cities, especially in both our downtown areas, to have so many cool restaurants, a very diverse set of restaurants. So I'm with you. Like, there are some great spots. And if you're going to do all this work putting together this bachelorette party, it's the least she could do.
I will tell her that.
Well, I hope she's listening. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. When I tell her that she was a focal point of part of the conversation, maybe that'll pique her interest. I got to tell you, I know it's your off season. It's a beautiful day as we record here on a Thursday in Minnesota. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I got to tell our listeners, and I'll tell them now while you're here, but I'll tell them later as I close the show. Working with you and your teammates on the Minnesota Frost is such an honor. You guys play the game the right way, but more importantly, you treat people the right way. I love the way you guys handle your business when the cameras aren't rolling. You guys are first class all the way from your head coach all the way through that roster. So I'm so excited to see where your team's at next year. I really hope that specifically you and Heisey are right back where you should be here playing in St. Paul. I think you will be. And have a great summer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You as well.
That's Grace Zumwinkle here on Wooden Sticks. I'm back to put a bow on this week's edition of the show next. All right, back for the final segment on the show. I'll just start by saying this, and I don't want to get too into the rabbit hole on this, but I love the PWHL. I am thrilled that I get to work within that league. Great people behind the scenes on the broadcast side that do incredible work. The league is really gaining some traction. The expansion thing is legit. The crowds are awesome. We're growing the game of hockey. I spent 10 years as a women's college hockey coach, so this is right up my alley. You cannot cancel a playoff game with a ticket to the championship on the line. You cannot do that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna die on that hill. I mean it sincerely, and I was shocked when they postponed Game 5 by a day and came back within 24 hours and played it. And I think, again, in terms of new leagues, you're going to learn lessons along the way, but your credibility and your consistency have to be at the highest of levels. That would not have happened at the National Hockey League level. Now, I understand completely that the NHL has a much deeper pool of players to pick from when there are illnesses and injuries. We talk about the Black Aces who travel with the team, talk about the minor league players available, that roster. That pool is deeper. There's no doubt about it. So I understand the logistics involved, and maybe that will change now. Maybe this will be a tipping point for moving forward. And I know Grace handled the question really well, which I knew she would. But in my opinion, you cannot postpone a game because a handful of players are ill in a championship series. That cannot happen at a professional level in the playoffs. And that's my opinion, and I'm not going to change it. And hopefully what they went through this year and seeing how it played out, they can adjust that rule and make it better down the road because, sickness, injuries, it's all part of these games. And for credibility purposes alone, you don't want to have games like that postponed, especially the day of the game, the afternoon of the game. Who knows if the result would have been any different? It really isn't the point, in my opinion. So I thought I had to get there at some point. It certainly was a major talker in the world of hockey. But we're on to bigger and better here as we move forward. Thanks again to Grace Zumwinkle for her time today. It's the summer. It's beautiful out. She plays golf. She plays tennis. She's helping plan a wedding for her best friend. She's training, all that good stuff. And she was still able to take the time today to make this happen. And that really I appreciate. And I thank the Minnesota Frost and especially Abby Zepper, who runs their PR along with Joe Anderson. They do terrific work. So help getting that set up today. Great work on their part. And hopefully you'll give us some input here and send me a note at Gorgomatic21 on the social media, specifically on X or Twitter. And anybody you'd like to hear from this summer, we're going to try to get that done as we get ready for the Stanley Cup. We'll have a great show for you next week. Thanks for listening. I'm Kevin Gorg. See you soon.